Section 56 of Greatheart. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Greatheart by Ethel M. Dell. Chapter 26. The Last Summons. There is naught in life more solemn than the waiting hush that falls before the coming of the great change which men call death. And it is to the watchers, rather than to the passing soul itself, that the wonder seems to draw most close. To stand before the veil, to know that very soon it must be lifted for the loved one to pass beyond, to wait for the glimpse of that spirit world from which only the frail wall of mortality divides even the least spiritual, to watch, as it were, for the gate of death to open and the great revelation to flash for one blinding moment upon the dazzled eyes that may not grasp the meaning of what they see. This is to stand for a space within the very sanctuary of God. The awe of it and the wonder hung night and day over the little rose-covered house on the heath above the sea, where Isabel was breathing forth the last of her broken earthly life. Dinah moved in that strange atmosphere as one in a dream. She spent most of her time with Scott in a silent companionship in which no worldly thoughts seemed to have any part. The things of earth, all worry, all distress, were in abeyance, had sunk to such infinitesimal proportions that she was scarcely aware of them at all. It was as though they had climbed the steep mountain with Isabel, and not till they turned again to descend could they be aware of those things which lay so far below. Without Scott, both doubts and fears would have been her portion, but with him all terrors fell shadow-like away before her. She hardly realized all that his presence meant to her during those days of waiting, but she leaned upon him instinctively, as upon a sure support. He never failed her. Of Eustace she saw but little. From the very first it was evident that his place was nearer to Isabel than Scott's had ever been. He did not shoulder Scott aside, but somehow, as a matter of course, he occupied the position that the younger brother had sought to fill for the past 7 years. It was natural. It was inevitable. Dinah could have resented this superseding at the outset had she not seen how gladly Scott gave place. Later, she realized that the ground on which they stood was too holy for such considerations to have any weight with either brother. They were united in the one supreme effort to make the way smooth for the sister who meant so much to them both. And during all those days of waiting, Dinah never heard a harsh or impatient word upon the elder's lips. All arrogance, all hardness, seemed to have fallen away from him as he trod with them that mountain path. Even old Biddy realized the change, and relented somewhat towards him, though she never wholly brought herself to look upon him as an ally. It was on a stormy evening at the beginning of July that Dinah was sitting alone in the little creeper-grown veranda, watching the wonderful greens and purples of the sea, when Eustace came, soft-footed, through the window behind her, and sat down in a chair close by, which Scott had vacated a few moments before. Scott had just gone to the village post office with some letters, but she had refused to accompany him, for it was the hour when she usually sat with Isabel. She glanced at Eustace swiftly as he sat down, half expecting a message from the sick room. But he said nothing, merely leaning back in the wicker chair, and fixing his eyes upon the somber splendor of endless waters upon which hers had been resting. There was a massive look about him, as of a strong man deliberately bent to some gigantic task. A little tremor went through her as furtively she watched him. His silence, unlike the silences of Scott, was disquieting. She could never feel wholly at ease in his presence. He turned his head towards her after a few seconds of absolute stillness, and in a moment her eyes sank. She sat in palpitating silence as one caught in some disgraceful act. But still he did not speak, and the painful color flooded her face under his mute scrutiny, till in sheer distress she found herself forced to take the initiative. "Is Isabel expecting me?" she faltered. "Ought I to go?" "No," he said quietly. "She is dozing. Old Biddy is with her." It seemed as if the intolerable silence were about to fall again. She cast about desperately for a means of escape. "Biddy was up and down during the night. I think I will relieve her for a little while and let her rest." She would have risen with the words, but unexpectedly he reached forth a detaining hand. "Do you mind waiting a minute?" he said. "I will not say or do anything to frighten you." He spoke with a faint smile that somehow hurt her almost unbearably. She remained as she was, leaning forward in her chair. "I am not afraid," she murmured almost inaudibly. His hand seemed to plead for hers, and in a moment she laid her own within it. "That's right," he said. "Dinah, will you try and treat me as if I were a friend, just for a few minutes?" The tone of his voice, like his smile, pierced her with a poignancy that sent the quick tears to her eyes. She forced them back with all her strength. "I would like to, always," she whispered. "Thank you," he said. "You are kinder than I deserve. I've done nothing to win your confidence, so it's all the more generous of you to bestow it. On the strength of your generosity, I'm going to ask you a question which only a friend could ask. Dinah, is there any understanding of any sort, apart from friendship, between you and Scott?" She started slightly at the question, and in a moment, firmly, with a certain authority, his hand closed upon hers. "You needn't be afraid to speak on Scott's account," he said, with that rather grim humility that seemed so foreign to his proud nature that every sign of it stabbed her afresh. "I'm not such a dog in the manger as that, and he knows it." "Oh, no," Dinah said, and her words came with a rush. "But I told you before, didn't I? He doesn't care for me like that. He never has, never will." "I wonder why you say that," Eustace said. "Because it is true." With a species of feverish insistence, she answered him. "How could I help knowing? Of course I know. Oh, please don't let us talk about it. It hurts me." "I want you to bear with me," he said gently. "Just for a few minutes. Dinah, what if you are making a mistake? Mistakes happen, you know. Scott is a shy sort of chap, and immensely reserved. Doesn't it occur to you that he may care for you, and yet be afraid, just as you are afraid, to let you know?" "No," Dinah said. "He doesn't. I know he doesn't." She spoke with her eyes upon the ground, her voice sunk very low. She felt as if she were being drawn down from the heights she desired to tread. She did not want to contemplate the problems that she knew very surely awaited her upon the lower level. She did not want to quit her sanctuary before the time. Sir Eustace received her assurance in silence, but he kept her hand in his, and the power of his personality seemed to penetrate to the very center of her being. He spoke at last, almost under his breath, still closely watching her downcast face. "Are you quite sure you still care for him in that way?" She made a quick appealing gesture. "Oh, need I answer that? I feel so ashamed." "No, you needn't answer," he made steady reply. "But you've nothing to be ashamed about. Stumpy's an awful ass, you know. Always has been. He's been head over heels in love with you ever since he met you. No, you needn't let that shock you. He's such a bashful knight he'll never tell you so. You'll have to do that part of it." He smiled with faint irony. "But you may take my word for it, it is so. He has thought of nothing but you and your happiness from the very beginning of things. And, unlike someone else we know, he has had the decency always to put your happiness first." He paused. Dinah's eyes had flashed up to his, green, eager, intensely alive, and behind those eyes her soul seemed to be straining like a thing in leash. "Oh, I knew he had cared for someone," she breathed, "but it couldn't have been me." "Yes," Sir Eustace said slowly, "you, and none other. You wonder if it's true, how I know? He's an awful ass, as I said before, one of the few supreme fools who never think of themselves. I knew that he was caught all right, ages back in Switzerland, and, being a low hound of mean instincts, I set to work to cut him out." "Oh," murmured Dinah, "that was just what I did with Rose Devine." His mouth twisted a little. "It's a funny world, Dinah," he said. "Our little game has cost us both something. I got too near the candle myself, and the scorch was pretty sharp while it lasted. Well, to get back to my story, Scott saw that I was beginning to give you indigestion, and, being, as I mentioned before, several sorts of a fool, he tackled me upon the subject and swore that if I didn't put an end to the game, he would put you on your guard against me, tell you, in fact, the precise species of rotter that I chanced to be. I was naturally annoyed by his interference. Anyone would have been. I gave him the kicking he deserved. That was low of me, wasn't it?" As she made a quick movement of shrinking. "You won't forgive me for that, or for what came after. The very next day, to spite the little beast, I proposed to you." Dinah's eyes were fiercely bright. "I wish I'd known," she said. "I wish to heaven you had, my dear." Eustace spoke with a grim hint of humor. "It would have saved us both a good deal of unnecessary trouble and humiliation. However, Scott was too big a fool to tell you. There's a martyr-like sort of cussedness about him that is several degrees worse than any pride. So he let things be, still cheating himself into the belief that the arrangement was for your happiness, till, as you are aware, it turned out so manifestly otherwise that he found himself obliged once more to come to the rescue of his lady love. But his exasperating humility was such that he never suspected the real reason for your change of mind, and when I accused him of cutting me out, he was as scandalized as only a righteous man knows how to be. You can't do much with a fellow like that, you know, a fool who won't believe the evidence of his own senses. Besides, it was not for me to enlighten him, particularly as you didn't want him to know the real state of things just then. So I left him alone. The next day, only the next day, mind you, the silent knight opened his heart. To whom, do you think? You'll be horribly furious when I tell you." He looked into the hot eyes with an expression half tender in his own. "Tell me," breathed Dinah. "Really? Well, prepare for a nasty shock. To Rose Devine." "To Rose?" Indignation gave place to bewilderment in Dinah's eyes. "Even so, to Rose. She guessed the truth, and he frankly admitted she was right, but gave her to understand that, as he hadn't a chance in the world, you were never to know. I'm telling you the truth, Dinah. You needn't look so incredulous. She naturally considered that he was not treating you very fairly, and said so. But," he raised his shoulders slightly, "you know Scott. Mules can't compete with him when he has his mind made up to a thing. He gracefully put an end to the discussion, and doubtless he has buried the whole subject in a neat little corner of his heart, where no one can ever tumble over it, and resigned himself to a lonely old age. Now, Dinah, I'm going to give you the soundest piece of advice I've ever given anyone. If you are wise, you will dig it up before the moss grows, bring it into the air, and call it back to life. It is the greatest desire of Isabel's heart to see you two happy together. She told me so only today, and I'm beginning to think that I wish it too." His look was wholly kind as he uttered the last words. He held her hand in the close grip of a friend. "Don't let that insane humility of his be his ruin," he urged. "He's a fool. I've always said so. But his foolishness is the sort that attacks only the great. Once let him know you care, and he'll be falling over himself to propose." "Oh, don't," Dinah begged, and her voice sounded chill yet somehow piteous. "I couldn't ever marry him. I told him so only the other day." "What? He proposed, did he?" Sheer amazement sounded in Eustace's voice. Dinah was not looking at him any longer. She sat rather huddled in her chair, as if a cold wind had caught her. "Yes," she said in the same small, uneven voice. "He proposed. He didn't make love to me. In fact, he promised that he never would. But he thought— yes, that was it. He thought that presently I should be lonely, and he wanted me to know that he was willing to protect me." "What a fool," Eustace said. "And so you refused him. I don't wonder. I should have pitched something at him if I'd been you." "Oh, no. That wasn't why I refused. I had another reason." Dinah's head was bent low. He saw the hot color she sought to hide. "I didn't know he cared," she whispered. "But even if I had known, I couldn't have said yes. I can never say yes now." "Good heavens above," he said. "Why not?" "It is a reason I can't tell anyone," faltered Dinah. "Nonsense," he said, with a quick touch of his old imperiousness. "You can tell me." She shook her head. "No, not you, not anyone." "That is absurd," he said with brief decision. "What is the reason? Out with it. Quick, like a good child. If you could marry me, you could marry him." "But I couldn't have married you," she protested, "if I had known." "It's something that's cropped up lately, is it?" He bent towards her, watching her keenly. "It can't be so very terrible." "It is," she told him in distress. He was silent a moment. Then very suddenly he moved, put his arm around her, drew her close. "What is it, my elf? Tell me," he whispered. She hid her face against him with a little sob. It was odd, but at that moment she felt no fear of the man. He, whose fiery caresses had once appalled her, had, by some means unknown, possessed himself of her confidence, so that she could not keep him at a distance. She did not even wish to do so. After a few seconds, quiveringly, she began to speak. "I don't know how to tell you. It's an awful thing to tell. You know, I've never been happy at home. My mother never liked me, was often cruel to me." She shuddered suddenly and violently. "I never knew why, till that awful night, the last time I saw her. And then she told me." She drew a little closer to him like a frightened child. He held her against his breast. She was trembling all over. "Well?" he said gently. Desperately, she forced herself to continue. "I don't belong to my father at all. Only to her." "What?" he said. She buried her shamed face a little deeper. "That was why she married," she whispered. "Your mother herself told you that?" Sir Eustace's voice was very low, but there was in it a danger note that made her quail. Someone was coming along the garden path, but neither of them heard. Dinah was crying with piteous, long-drawn sobs. The telling of that tragic secret had wrung her very soul. "Oh, don't be angry," You won't be angry?" she pleaded brokenly. His hand was on her head. "My child, I'm not angry with you," he said. "You were not to blame. There, dear, there, don't cry. Isabel will be distressed if she finds out. We mustn't let her know of this." "Or Scott either." She lifted her face appealingly. "Eustace, please, please, you won't tell Scott. I couldn't bear him to know." He looked into her beseeching eyes, and his own softened. "It may be he will have to know some day," he said, "but not yet." The halting steps drew nearer, uneven, yet somehow purposeful. Abruptly, Eustace became aware of them. He looked up sharply. "You had better go, dear," he whispered to the girl in his arms. "Isabel may be wanting you at any time. We must think of her first now. Run in quickly and dry your eyes before anyone sees. Come along." He rose, supporting her, turned her towards the window, and gently but urgently pushed her within. She went swiftly enough as he released her, went with her hands over her face and not a backwards glance. And Eustace wheeled back with a movement that was almost fierce, and met his brother as he set foot upon the veranda. Scott's face was pale as death, and there was that in his eyes that could not be ignored. Eustace answered it on the instant, briefly, with a restraint that obviously cost him an effort. "It's all right. Dinah is a bit upset this evening, but she'll be all right directly if we leave her alone." Scott did not so much as pause. "Let me pass," he said. His voice was perfectly quiet, but the command of it was such that Eustace, taken unawares, gave ground as it were instinctively. But the next moment, impulsively, he caught Scott's arm. "I say, Stumpy." An odd embarrassment possessed him. He shook it off half angrily. "You needn't go making mistakes, jumping to idiotic conclusions. I'm not cutting you out this time." Scott looked at him. His light eyes held contempt. "Oh, I know that," he said, and there was in his slow voice a note of bitter humor that cut like a whip. "You are never in earnest. You were always the sort to make sport for yourself out of suffering, and then to toss the dregs of your amusement to those who are not sportsmen." Eustace was as white as he was himself. He held him in a grip of iron. "What the devil do you mean?" he said, his voice husky with the strong effort he made to control it. The younger brother was absolutely controlled, but his eyes shone like a dazzling white flame. "Ask yourself that question," he said, and his words, though low, had a burning quality, almost as if some force apart from the man himself inspired them. "You know the answer as well as I do. You've studied the damnable game so long, offered so many victims upon the altar of your accursed sport. There's nothing to prevent your going on with it. You will go on, no doubt, till you tire of the chase, and then your turn will come. You will find yourself alone among the ruins, and you will pay the price. You may repent then, but repentance sometimes comes too late." He was gone with the words, gone as if an inner force compelled, shaking off the hand that had detained him, and passing scatheless within. He went up the stairs as calmly as if he had entered the house without interruption. Someone was sobbing piteously behind a closed door, but he did not turn in that direction. He moved straight to the door of Isabel's room, as if a voice had called him. And on the threshold Biddy met him, her black eyes darkly mysterious, her wrinkled face drawn with awe rather than grief. "Ah, Master Scott, and it is yourself," she whispered. "I was coming to fetch you, coming to tell you. It is the call. She's had her last summons. Fate and I almost heard it myself. She'll be gone by morning, the blessed lamb. There'll be no holding her after this." Scott passed her by without a word. He went straight to his sister's bedside. She was lying with her face turned up to the evening sky. But on the instant her eyes met his, and in them was that look of a great expectation which many term the shadow of death. "Oh, Stumpy, is it you?" she said. Her breathing was quick and irregular, but it did not seem to hurt her. "I've had such a wonderful dream. Or could it have been a vision?" He bent and took her hand in his. His eyes were infinitely tender. All the passion had been wiped out of his face. "It may have been a vision, dear," he said. Her look brightened. She smiled. "He was here, in this room, with me," she said. "He was standing there at the foot of the bed, and I held out my arms to him. Oh, Stumpy, I almost thought I was going with him then, but I think he heard you coming, for he laughed and drew back. 'We shall meet in the morning,' he said. And while I was still looking, he was gone." She began to pant. He stooped and raised her. She clung to him with all her waning strength. "Stumpy, Stumpy, you will help me through the night?" "My darling, yes," he said. She clung to him still. "It won't be goodbye," she urged softly. "You will be coming too, very soon." "God grant it," he said under his breath. Her look dwelt upon him. Again, faintly, she smiled. "Ah, Stumpy," she said, "but you are going to be very happy first, my dear. My dear." End of section 56.